Welcome, Vice Mayor and council members, members of the public. I call this regular meeting of the Albany City Council for December 2nd, 2024 to order. Vice Mayor Lopez, would you read the land acknowledgement statement?
The City of Albany recognized that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lisjan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationship with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Lopez. Today, I'd like to take the opportunity to say a few words before we proceed with the council agenda. Given recent national and international events of the past few weeks, months, and year, as I am sure the rest of my fellow council members, have heard from many about their fears and anxieties about the future. I want to reaffirm that Albany values and celebrates our diverse community members. We embrace the diversity of Albany and the East Bay people, regardless of where a person is from, who they love, how they worship, how they look, their abilities, housing status, or how they vote. We as Albany stand united against hate. I also want to add a reminder to take care of oneself. Take time to process things and be mindful, especially in these stressful times. If you or a loved one is experiencing thoughts of suicide, a mental health or substance use crisis, or any other kind of emotional distress, call or text 988 to speak to a trained crisis specialist. As mayor, I have ended nearly every meeting with this statement, which holds true today as much as it did the first time I read it. While this statement may seem jarring in the context of Albany stands united against hate, taking care of oneself and having access to help in times of high stress and anxiety are essential. Thank you. With that, I'll ask the city clerk to call roll, please.
Councilmember Hanson Romero.
Here.
Councilmember Jordan.
Here.
Councilmember Tiedemann is absent. Vice Mayor Lopez.
Here.
And Mayor Mickey.
Here. We had no closed session, so there's no actions to report on. Today we have no ceremonial matters, so we'll move on to item number 5, City Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mayor.
City Manager, may the council have your report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to refresh information regarding the gamma surveys that have been conducted at the Albany Bulb. They were completed, the initial survey work. Earlier this year, San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board requested that the city investigate whether industrial waste materials containing alum mud were historically accepted at the former Albany landfill site on the waterfront. This initial survey work has been completed, and there are 3 areas that will be subject to further investigation. However, I'd like to reiterate that the initial findings have not indicated any major concerns or any direct risk to public health and safety at this time. I appreciate the assistance and advisement that the regional board has shown to the city in this matter, and we continue to work in partnership with them. As a reminder, we do have a living webpage on our website, which we will continue to update as the survey work continues forward. There was some media coverage on this item today. I don't think it was entirely accurate based on the initial consultant survey work in concurrence with the regional board. So I thought it important to reflect on the factual content that we will continue to post on this webpage. We have new community members moving into town very soon. The Verona Hill, otherwise known as the Saha Project, is just about ready for opening, and we expect new residents to move in as soon as the second week of December, so right around the corner. As a reminder, this is a 62-unit affordable apartment community located at the foot of East Shore and Solano Hill neighborhood. We will also be doing some initial outreach to the residents in terms of welcoming and letting them know about all available city services and programs. A lot of pages here tonight. Some more exciting news, streetlight replacement is underway. Yes, hooray. Thank you to Public Works and actually Alameda County who assists with this work, and to the community's patience as some streets have been patiently waiting for streetlight replacements. So please look forward to this work forthcoming within the month of December. We're planning this initial phase to replace up to 70 failed or failing streetlights throughout the city over the next 3 weeks. We will also be doing additional survey work to make sure that we continue to stay on top and avoid any further backlog in failed lights. Marin Avenue Pavement and Curb Rehabilitation Project, Phase 2. The Transportation Commission will be receiving an update on this project this Thursday, December 5th, here at City Hall. This is a special meeting date for the second phase of this project, following East Bay Mud waterline replacement. The project will consist of pavement and rehab on Marin Avenue from Key Route to City of Albany East Limit near Tulare. This will be a project, another project too, which will potentially impact travel lanes and so forth, but really essential to the usability of that street. The project also includes upgrades to curb ramps, traffic striping, signage, improved pedestrian crossings, and intersection street lighting improvements. Construction is expected in 2025 and likely extend through 2026. As a reminder, our staff keeps our Public Works project pages regularly updated, so please take a look at those if you'd like to keep status awareness on this project and any others. Also on December 5th, same meeting with our Transportation Commission, they will receive a presentation on the development of our active transportation plan with regard to goals and existing conditions, and also discuss initial analysis in the next phase of planning. As a reminder, we have a web page for this planning process specifically. Short link is bit.ly/AlbanyATP. Please check your mailboxes forthcoming for the new winter-spring activity guide. As usual, it is packed full of opportunities for all ages within our community. Winter-spring class registration begins Tuesday, December 10th at 9 a.m. Our winter fields remain, our fields remain closed for the winter field refresh, including the closure of the dog park. These are for specific projects. The dog park will have both seasonal maintenance and some improvements with regard to irrigation and drainage, and some additional enhancements with a new entrance and holding area, small new dog area, new bottle filler, new benches, trees, and other amenities. So it's exciting to see this project underway. Again, thank you for the patience and planning that went into this. The fields will be closed for about 3 months to allow the grasses to grow and for the next well-used and loved sports seasons. A new Albany Hill field guide is available. This is a really interesting document developed through the intuitiveness of our Public Works Department in coordination with an internship program. The work is funded through a Coastal Conservancy grant and walks through 22 plants, 17 insects, 2 reptiles, 2 mammals, and 8 birds that are a reflection of our local ecology and the history of that ecology. Also a reminder to the council and the community that we have a special meeting of the City Council next week, Monday, December 9th at 5 p.m. This will include oath of office for newly elected council members. Thank you, Mayor. That completes my report.
Thank you, City Manager. If anyone attending would like to ask a question about or comment on the City Manager's report, those online, please press your raise your hand button. Those in the room, if you could raise your hands in the room, just so we have a sense of how many.
Good evening. Regarding Verona Hill, the 62-unit project at 755 Cleveland Street, I have a copy of the State Treasurer's report on that project, and the cost of the 62 units was approximately $62 million. Of that $62 million, the report states that $4.65 million was for land cost that the city of Albany was supposed to receive, I guess. That, it wasn't clear, but that's included as part of the cost. So my question is, can we find out, will that $4.65 million be paid in the future, or was it paid? So how is that money transferred, and during what part of the process does it get transferred? Thank you.
Any other questions in the room?
Hi,
Well, online, thank you.
should I speak?
Yes, sorry about that, Julie.
It's okay. I just wanted to add a question also about the Verona Hill. When the city manager said that there'd be some welcoming and outreach, I was wondering if that's going to be all virtual, or is that actually going to be in-person, physical objects? Because I know there's a tendency in the city to do a lot of virtual stuff, so I just wanted to see what it's going to look like. Thank you.
Hi there. Yeah, it's Amy Smolens. I just want to say thanks for good news about the 70 new streetlights, because now that it gets dark early, the pitch dark sidewalks are really, really hazardous. Half the time I literally end up walking in the street when I'm walking, because you can see better and it's less iffy, and there's not cracks and there's not weeds and trees. So those can't come soon enough. So thank you very much. Looking forward to lighter sidewalks.
Thank you for your comments, everyone. There were some questions. I don't know if there are any answers.
Sure.
City Manager?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. With regard to the funding, I will provide a report and make sure that that is available. That will require a bit more research on my part. With regard to the outreach, absolutely, that will be direct engagement at the facility, and we are coordinating with the representatives from SAHA to do that in partnership with our school district, as well as a handful of staff from different departments, primarily our Recreation and Community Services Department, to really learn about the opportunities to enrich the community.
Thank you, City Manager. With that, we'll move on to item 6, Good of the City. Good of the City, this is for attendees to provide the council comments, information, questions on an item that is not on the agenda. Please raise your hand online or in the room for those who would like to speak. So we have 3. How many online do we have? We'll go 3 minutes. 6. We'll still do 3 minutes.
Thank you. The Albany Financial Advisory Committee that the City Council terminated 2 weeks ago was created to provide both accountability and transparency in all financial matters of the city after the voters eliminated the city treasurer as an elected office, who would have been directly accountable to the voters. It was done without prior notice to the 5 sitting committee members by the council or the city staff that served them as their liaison to the council. At a very minimum, the agenda item should have included 6 words: sunsetting of the Financial Advisory Committee. It did not. Why didn't it? The council member Jordan lacked the basic courtesy of informing his appointee on the FAC of his intentions to terminate the committee. Without notice of this premeditated action, The city council's decision was done without any opportunity for the public to comment or for the 5 members of the committee, whom I can attest personally, have studiously pored over the city finances with great insight and personal concern for 3 years. We took our roles extremely seriously as representatives and financial guardians of the citizens and taxpayers of the city. Will you now? The City Council took one giant step backwards from transparency and accountability in governance, and the way they went about it reinforced that image. In November, the City Council supported a measure that gave the city administrator unilateral power to hire a new finance director without approval of the City Council. Another step backwards for less accountability to the voters. The mission of the Financial Advisory Committee was to enhance independent oversight and fiscal transparency while promoting and facilitating governmental accountability with sound and transparent management of all financial resources. Those are pretty big shoes you choose to fill with your standing subcommittee. You'd better be up for it, because we will be watching and involved, and we will hold you accountable.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. I'm Kim Trainer, Albany resident and former member of the Financial Advisory Committee. I'm here to give a public comment on the matter of the sunsetting of the Financial Advisory Committee, which occurred at the November 18th council meeting. This decision was abrupt and made with precious little public discussion, at least from what transpired at the November 18th meeting. We as a committee felt something was amiss when our October meeting was canceled on short notice without reason by staff. Then finance staff didn't attend the November FAC meeting and again gave no reason. The sequence in the council meeting of November 18th was a brief discussion of sunsetting the FAC, accompanied by a tepid discussion about the council forming its own finance subcommittee. The discussion about sunsetting the FAC lasted approximately 4 minutes and was followed by a unanimous approval by the council. I was stunned that this decision could be reached so quickly and with so little discussion. I'm puzzled as to how this happened without prior private coordination. This committee seems to have been set up to fail from the beginning. Our attempts to communicate with the council were repeatedly brushed back by city staff, and we were told it wouldn't be possible or appropriate for us to have scheduled time for presentations to the council. In 3 years' time, we were allowed one agendized presentation in May 2023. Why form a financial advisory committee when you don't want to hear what we had to report? The council's manner of terminating the committee was high-handed and disrespectful. No one from the council or city staff extended the courtesy of letting anyone on the FAC know that the committee had been discontinued until a week had passed. We learned of this ourselves from watching the council meeting online, and we had to reach out to staff to confirm that our December 4th meeting had been canceled. The FAC was a volunteer committee, and I feel our time and effort was not utilized well. We spent a lot of time and gained a lot of knowledge, which was basically tossed aside. I question why citizens would wish to serve the city and council given such a lack of access to report back to council. As a reason for sunsetting committees, Councilmember Jordan mentioned that Albany has too many committees for a city of its size. I did some research into neighboring cities of similar size, and I also threw in Berkeley since it's our neighbor to the south. My findings: Orinda, 14 total committees; El Cerrito, 12 committees; Piedmont, 11; Moraga, 9; Hercules, 5; Berkeley, 32; Lafayette, 18; Benicia, 20. The average of all these cities is 14 committees, or 12 if you leave out Berkeley, which is the outlier. This makes me question the comment that 9 committees is too many. I'm concerned that discontinuing this committee will make the city's finances less accessible and harder for the public to understand. And I'm troubled that there will no longer be an official committee voice to put a spotlight on the city's financial challenges and to recommend solutions. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, My name is Kyle Bowman. I served as vice chair of the Financial Advisory Committee. In short, I'm disappointed that this council chose to dispense a group of voluntary citizens whose obligation was to provide transparency and oversight to one of the most essential government functions, to collect and spend the hard-earned money of its citizens and businesses. This comes amid a time when the city has recently budgeted multi-million-dollar deficits year over year and has a potential financial crisis on the horizon pending the fate of Golden Gate Fields, a property that generates millions in revenue for the city and the school district, money which could be in jeopardy if it's sold to a tax-exempt entity. I'm encouraged to hear that a committee of some form of ongoing engagement from the council may take place in the form of a subcommittee or at least a regular opportunity to review our city's financial information objectively moving forward. We as a committee look forward to your proposal and hope that you choose a path that promotes comprehension of the city's finances and transparency. And the members of this committee, including myself, are happy to continue to engage. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Oh,
Hello, I'm Mark Priven. I am the most recent chair of the Sunsetted Financial Advisory Committee. I'm a longtime, many-decade resident of Albany. I'm an actuary by training, and I was on the Financial Advisory Committee for its entire existence, and now I feel like I basically wasted about 3 years of my time on that committee. As Francesco said, we did exactly what the City Council asked us to do, reviewing the finances, looking specifically at the unfunded pension liability, looking at better communication of how the city's finances are doing, looking at how we can raise revenue without doing new tax measures. And you could have invited us to a City Council meeting anytime. We could have talked in person, in a public forum about all our concerns and your concerns, but you chose to do that once in 3 years. When we did show up doing public comment, which was the only way that we could voice our concern, we were treated dismissively. Meanwhile, the city's unfunded pension liability is over $50 million, 1.5 times the city budget. Obviously, we've lost a major revenue source in the Golden Gate Fields, and the most recent state audit shows that the city is in the bottom 1/5 of all cities in California in terms of financial health. In the face of all that, without asking us our opinion, without even informing us it was going to be discussed, you sunsetted the committee. So, with great respect to what you do, and I do respect the time and effort that you do in helping to run the city, your treatment of the Financial Advisory Committee has been horrible. And you've convinced yourself, as far as I can tell, that the problem was the structure. But my conclusion in terms of how you treated us is that you all are the problem. You didn't want to hear from us. You didn't invite us to anything. It appears to us that you think you know better. And I think that's the problem. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Stephen Alpert. Over the past months, I've asked the council why the city follows only the minimum state mandate of notifying those within 300 feet of proposed new construction, regardless of project size, when in fact, for years, other municipalities have varied notification distances based on project size. The city's practice of only alerting those within 300 feet of new construction is inappropriate for large multi-story projects, which will impact all of Albany. Such was the case for the 5-story mixed residential commercial structure at 1600 Solano Avenue. I and several Albany residents have requested the issue of 300 feet notification be submitted as a meeting agenda item to allow for extended, in-depth public discussion. For reasons unknown, to date, this has not occurred. Instead, I and others have been restricted to public comment remarks. Nonetheless, serious concerns emerged. 4 Albany city officials were unresponsive, engaged in obfuscation, and outright lied as to why the city could not expand notification beyond 300 feet minimum. Let's review. Last December, Community Development Director Bond falsely asserted that state law precluded Albany from issuing citywide alerts for new construction. On April 1st, Councilman Jordan claimed that existing state laws would cause, quote, legal exposure if the city enacted varying notification. For 5 months thereafter, he refused to cite these laws. On June 17th, he claimed that on May 20th, the city attorney cited state laws supporting his contention of legal exposure. In fact, the city attorney defended the city's compliance with 300 feet notification and claimed that California Code 658539 might preclude notification. However, she never referenced Code 65008, which Councilman Jordan finally cited on September 3rd. When confronted in mid-October by Michael Forbes, Director of Community Development for Beverly Hills, that both laws were immaterial to public notification for new construction, Councilman Jordan incorrectly reasserted that Code 65008, enacted in 2023, quote, prohibits cities from discriminating on projects based on their size. When asked whether Beverly Hills had to alter its practice since 2014, using 500 and 1,000 feet notification for different size projects based on Code 6508, Director Forbes responded, quote, the city of Beverly Hills has not altered its noticing practices based on Code 65008 or any other state law. Lastly, Councilman Tiedemann has denied that either Director Bond or Councilman Jordan were non-factual. Whose interests are the city officials promoting? The practice of only notifying those within 300 feet clearly limits public discourse, allowing the council to push through new projects, no matter how inappropriate, with minimal awareness and input from the public. I'm asking that 300 feet notification be submitted as an agenda item. Thank you. Yet again asking.
Thank you for your comments.
Earl?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Carol Fitzgerald, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the Friends of Albany Hill. I'm going to change the subject matter. Could you pass these to the council members? Right here. You can, okay. So each year for the last 20 years, the Friends of Albany Hill have sponsored a day with nature on Albany Hill. And so this Sunday, that's coming up. And we begin with bird watching, and the guide for that is Ralph Pirocoli, who's a longtime Albany resident, and he's a master birder, has his license from the California Academy of Science, and that will be followed by Kira Swinnerton, who's a naturalist and biologist, and she'll be leading what's called a forest bathing. It's a mindfulness workshop. It comes from Japan, and it's basically sensory awareness. What we need right now is to walk in nature in silence. Karen Sorensen, our local author and historian, is going to do an Albany Hill history walk, and then at 3, I lead the monarch migration census. I've been doing that for 20 years, and we show the public how the data is collected for the yearly count. And so there's a lot going on this weekend, I know, but they're all varied. So I think we have a very interesting time coming up, and I wanted you to know about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your comments.
Dawn?
I don't know Robert's Rules of Order, so sorry for interrupting and jumping in. So I wanted to comment on 2 things really quickly. One is the 1600 Solano project. When I was out giving flyers regarding this past election, and I got to talk to a lot of people, I was astounded because, to be honest, I didn't know about the 1600 Solano project until I was talking to people giving out flyers. And I was absolutely astounded when I heard there was no garage, there was no parking for this structure. And given how tight parking is in Albany, and when I created my unit, I'm a landlord, I was required to provide parking, which I totally understood, and my neighbors greatly appreciated that I was going to be providing parking to my tenant. And so when I heard there was no parking for this structure, I was shocked. I was really shocked, because it'll put a great pressure on the neighborhood and surrounding areas. So anyways, that's my comment regarding his comments. My other comment is regarding to the Finance Committee, and I just want to throw one of those wet noodles against the wall and see if it sticks. This is to be creative. Why not consider taking your Finance Committee and somehow embedding them, all the people who are on the Finance Committee, somehow embedding them into the subcommittee? Now, it may not be, other cities may not do that, but, why not try to find a different way to do something? Why lose the brain power and the effort these people have put in and try to incorporate and leverage some of this knowledge? So that's that. And, the last thing I wanted to say about the 1600 Solano project is, you all want to be inclusive, don't you, as a council? So even if what you deem to be the regulations of only a certain distance from the project to notify people, what the hell? Why not make it more expansive? More information, more input. Isn't that a better thing? Don't you want to know the feelings of more of the neighbors than less and fewer of the neighbors who are going to be impacted? Why not be inclusive? Why not try and get as many people as you can nearby different projects as they're being built? Expand what is required. Why go for the minimum requirement? Why not go beyond the minimum to try and get as much input and get as many people notified? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi there. Can you please clarify, speaking of committees, clarify when people may apply to the commissions and committees that do still exist? I looked at the website and there's still no date. It still indicates a vague early mid-December, and it's now December, so it kind of seems to be a mystery, and I'm not sure why. The holidays are coming soon, so I think you'd want to encourage people to apply soon, and all the current members need to reapply so all the positions can be filled and the bodies can hit the ground running in January. So what's the date for applying, and why isn't it published and publicized? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I have a few comments. One is I just want to express my sympathy to the members of the Financial Advisory Committee, because I had the same experience twice in Albany, being on a committee and having it be abruptly ended. And one of them was CMAQ, which was, we had just decided that we've been given permission to be the committee that would make sure that all the communications in the city were getting out to people, members of the community, not just through emails that are sent from the city. And so it was, and now there's no one doing that, and it's just amazing. If you ask people in Albany if they know what's going on, they don't, because there's nobody doing that really in an intensive way. So that's first. So I want to express my sympathy for them, because I know that feeling so well. And then my second is about this flooding. And I've brought this up before, and I've talked to somebody at the city, and I talked to Public Works, but it's just not acceptable. And I don't know what the city can do about it, but it's just not acceptable. The latest rain, it was physically impossible for, my husband and I were at the Albany High School, and we tried to come home, and we lived on Stanage between Solano and Washington. We ended up having to wade through ankle-deep water. There was no way that we could, even though we tried, we went out of the way. We come down Washington, no, that's not going to work. We went over to Portland, that's not going to work. We went down to to San Pablo. It's just literally, we couldn't get back to our house without wading through water. And it's because on the south side of both Portland and Washington, and probably other streets too, I don't know, the water is designed to pour down the streets and pour coming from the south. The street is sloped, so all the water feeds from, example, Stanage onto Washington and then pours down Washington. There are no drains until you get down to Canes, I think. So all along, there's nowhere for that water to go. And this time, I have a video of it. It is unbelievable. It's like looking at a swimming pool all the way down. And so I don't know how you expect people to walk around. I don't know how you expect people to function, to get to their houses, to be able to leave their house. It's just incredible. And then I thought, well, one thing you could do is everybody that lives in that area, you could provide rubber boots for them, knee-high rubber boots. At least they would be able to, the people who could walk would actually have a way of getting to and from their houses. So I don't know what the answer is, because I know it's purposely designed this way, but it's not acceptable, and I'm happy to send everybody my video. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Gregory Bone, retired member of the Albany Police Department. I would like to address the recent sunsetting of the city's Financial Advisory Committee, the FAC, at the most recent November council meeting. I have followed and participated in the committee's meetings for the past several years. I found the members of the FAC to be intelligent and dedicated to their task of providing advice to the council regarding financial matters. This committee was authorized by Council Resolution 2020-12 in part due to the transitioning of the elected city treasurer's office to a position appointed by council. The resolution goes on to explain, in view of the above, the intent behind creating the committee was to further enhance independent oversight and fiscal transparency. The FAC was charged many responsibilities, but basically the review of the city's financial documents and to provide advice to council on financial matters. This was a very serious and dedicated group of adults, and I believe the sunsetting of this committee removes a needed citizen body that provided for a second set of eyeballs on the financial workings of the city. I viewed the committee's work as helping the city. By stating the above, I also want to be very clear that I have confidence in the staff of the City of Albany. In fact, worked with many of them before my retirement. I know them to be intelligent and have integrity. I do not doubt this for 1 minute. I also know council works extremely hard in carrying out their duties serving the citizens of Albany. Their job is often thankless and difficult, having to make decisions that don't always please everybody. I get that and I respect that. But staff and councils change. That is normal. We do not know the future and who will occupy these positions. I view the FAC as one of the most important citizen bodies the City of Albany has or had in this case. Virtually everything a city needs and wants to accomplish requires a strong financial footing. Council has obligations to fulfill as well as aspirations to deliver to its citizens, business owners, past employees, and current employees. This is why I viewed the work of the FAC as so very important. In closing, I want to thank the members of the FAC for their service to the city. It is not much, but it is a thank you. I believe the city is better for their service. Thank you and good night.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you, everyone, for providing comments tonight. I'm going to try and address some of the comments. City Clerk, do we have dates yet for when applications for commissioners and committee members would open?
We have scheduled to post at the end of this week, which typically we usually post, previously we usually post the second week of December. And also the website is underway being modified as we have to do outreach to include school outreach.
Thank you. Let's see. In terms of, I'm going to just address a little bit of the flooding concerns. Thank you for bringing those to our attention, for continuing to bring those to our attention. I know not this past storm, but the previous set of storms that we had, I too experienced the river that Washington becomes during heavy rainfall. This was explained. I'm going to try not to turn this into a long conversation, but what makes me really excited about the city looking into the stormwater system that we have now. There is currently a study going on that will help inform both staff and council on future investments for stormwater management improvements. Particularly, has already been identified by both staff and by council, this portion of Washington. That does not address the immediate need, but it is on our radar. Anytime we deal with stormwater, we're talking about millions of dollars and not tens of thousands of dollars. So there is often a time lag between being able to address these larger issues. In terms of the FAC, I do want to both thank the FAC members who have participated in the past and present. I know that my appointee has been very, very open about explaining things that have been going on in the FAC. I appreciate everything that you've done. I will also say that I do hope that when we do form a standing committee that we'll have an opportunity to have some sessions with you all. I would also say that while in the short term you may feel some shock and I heard expressed some feeling of wasted time, I will say that your time was not wasted. There are things that I know that staff has done, staff is doing, that is not public, that has been heavily influenced by the work that you all have done. And so please understand that the work that you all have done has been very impactful, even if not all of it is obvious to both you or the public. Some of the stuff is not necessarily, there are reports and work being done that were heavily influenced by the questions that you all raised. I think with that, I will stop with the FAC, but I do want to say that I think we all do appreciate the work that you all did. And my recollection is we are looking either in December or early January to actually have the conversation about forming these standing committees. And at that point, we'll have the opportunity to have the conversation about what those meetings might look like and your all's participation. I don't think there's the ability to do the recommendation of having a joint committee and council standing commission, but we would all appreciate your involvement. I don't believe there were any other questions that were raised that I can address. Thank you for bringing to our attention the Day with Nature on Albany Hill. I'll make sure to mention that later in the agenda when we talk about future events in Albany. Councilmember Jordan.
Yeah, I thought it might be helpful if the city attorney is willing to reprise on state law around off-street parking, how it's changed through time in terms of requirements.
I'll be very brief, but the parking requirements have changed, particularly around proximity to scheduled bus routes and other major transit stops. And so it limits how many parking spaces can be required on housing projects.
There's also a nexus with state density bonus law, aside from the transit.
Correct. A density bonus law has a maximum amount of parking spaces per unit that can be required if an applicant is using density bonus law. So these couple of provisions really tied the city's hands in order to apply more abundant parking requirements that it may have done in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Attorney. Thank you, everyone, for providing comments today. I will move on to item 7, consent calendar. On the consent calendar, items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. By approval of the consent calendar, the staff recommendation will be adopted unless otherwise modified by the City Council. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or a member of the audience requests removal of the items from the consent calendar. Looking to see if any council members would like to discuss or pull an item. Not seeing anything from the council. Are there any members of the public that would like to pull an item?
Hi, I'd like to pull 7-4.
7-4, body cams, storage systems contract. Any other items? Not seeing any other items. See, trying to remember, do we go straight to public comment then? Okay, sorry, I'm drawing a blank today. So Julie, go ahead and provide your comments on item 7-4, body camera and storage system contract.
Hi, okay, thank you. I just had some questions about it. I was wondering, the resolution says that there would be accepting no bids, and they'll just go ahead and go with the same company, and I'm wondering, why not? Why not look into what other people can offer? Why not do some comparative shopping? I've noticed over the years that Albany tends to stay with whatever they're with and not do a lot of comparative shopping, and so I was wondering, like, why not? I did a bunch of reviews of other I read a lot about it today, and it looks like there are other companies, in particular one, that could offer the same thing. So that was one of my questions. My second question is, who reviews the footage? When I was reading about this, it looks like it's a horrifying amount of footage that is being stored in the cloud, and I'm wondering, is somebody actually reviewing the footage? And then I also want to know, is there mandatory recording for all police officers in Albany? So is it, as soon as they get in the car, they turn on their camera and then it's on for the whole time, or do they turn it on and off? Or like, I don't know what the requirements are. And then I saw that it was going to come with a certain amount of cloud storage, and I'm wondering, is it just going to stay in the cloud? That's one thing, and nobody's ever going to look at it because it seems overwhelming to look at it. I don't think you're allowed to erase it from what I was reading, because if you did, you could be erasing something or deleting something from the cloud that might turn out to be important later, even though it doesn't apparently look like it's important at the time. So I'm just wondering about that. I'm wondering if there's an actual backup and if there's some sort of storage on the cameras themselves, or if the internet were to go down, would you have no access? Like if a police officer was out there, had their camera on, recorded, and then something happened, there was a big storm or something happened, would there be like no footage, or would it be on their camera? How big is the memory on the camera? And does Albany subscribe to some sort of software that analyzes the footage? Because I noticed a lot of police departments are using something like Trulio is one of them. Let's see. I think that's it. I actually sent a Portside article to all of you before the meeting, because I spent a couple hours today researching this that I thought you might find interesting in terms of how this information is used or not used, whether it's actually helping. If you're not analyzing the footage, is it actually making a difference? I'm not saying I'm against it, but I'm just wondering how it's being used. So I have a lot of questions, and I would have loved if there'd been a public discussion about the cameras instead of just having it be on the consent calendar and everybody says, sure, we agree, go ahead, just don't accept any bids. I would have liked there to have been more discussion. I would like the council to maybe think more about this before you approve this resolution. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, 7-4, yeah. Yes, I had a similar question about the waiving of seeking competitive bids. And I was wondering, just in general about this, if the city has a certain policy, like if the purchase is at like 200,000, almost $250,000, if it's that amount, then you don't have to go out to bid? Is it like, under what circumstances do you waive the bidding process, the competitive bidding process? Is it a dollar amount, or is it a circumstance amount, like it's an emergency, we had a massive earthquake and we need to make a purchase like ASAP now, we don't have times to go out for bid? So I was just seeking clarity on what is the city's policy on when do we waive competitive bids, under what circumstances, a dollar amount or a circumstance situation. And I applaud the city for getting a grant. I love grants, free money, that's great. So I didn't know if this COPS grant, if that's why you didn't seek competitive bids or don't want to go for a competitive bid, is in writing the grant, you had already identified the vendor and used that vendor and their price in the proposal to get the grant. which is free money, which is fantastic. And I applaud the city every time it can get a grant. That's awesome. So I'm just trying to get some clarity of why the bid was waived and under what circumstances you do that.
Thank you for your comments. So I'm going to add a little bit, and then I'm going to turn to staff, because then we're going to get deeper than I can. This contract is really an amendment to an existing contract or an extension of existing contract. So in 2019, the police department entered a contract with the firm that provides the cameras and the storage. And as in the staff reports, we're coming up on this point where we can renew that contract and continue to use the cameras that we have, but also get additional storage since we've been bumping into our existing storage limit. I think that's about as far as I can get into this, and I'll look to the city manager to answer the other questions.
Sure, and we have our police chief joining us virtually who can more substantively address some of the questions raised.
Good evening, council. Thank you for being here tonight to hear about this body camera extension contract. Part of what Axon offers and why we use them as a sole source is because they offer a product called evidence.com, which our district attorney's office has. And that allows us to not only have community members upload videos to that link, but then the district attorney's office can get videos from that link as well. So it saves us, whereas in years past, we would have to burn a video or a thumb drive and give that to the district attorney's office. They're able to log in and get that. As far as who reviews the footage, it can be anybody from a sergeant to a lieutenant. Sometimes I've reviewed videos, so it varies. And along those lines, I'm familiar with Julie's comments about Trulio. I think that's potentially a resource that larger departments who have a much larger span of control maybe need and utilize, because they're supervising more employees. And I think when you look at our overall complaints and use of force, I think in particular when we're looking at budget, that may not be money that is well spent for something like that, but it is something I'm aware of, and I've talked to some people who have used it and whatnot. The COPS grant is actually a grant we get every year to support frontline purchases such as this. And so it's nothing we apply for, it's actually money we get each year that is designed to support frontline services that we need. Mandatory recording, we have an expectation that our officers are recording on calls for service. They are not turning them on when they are just in their patrol cars. And I would encourage you to go to our website. We do have a body cam video and policy, and you can look at that of what the expectation is for utilization of those. The cloud storage, again, that is a big feature. I believe we almost more than doubled the use of our original contract, and that is why we were transitioning to the cloud storage. As far as a backup, the cameras are get put into their charging trays. I believe if there was a outage for power, the videos would stay on and then just upload once the power came back on and Wi-Fi came on to the cameras, but I am not 100% sure, but I'm happy to look into that feature. And I believe that covered everything.
And just one more addition. Thank you, Chief Geisberger. With regard to the sole source justification, as included in City Council procedure and policy, I can read it quickly. Service contracts requiring individuals or firms possessing a high degree of skill and knowledge and sole source contracts are exempt from the bidding policy. An individual or a firm, in this circumstance, company, may be considered sole source because of, but not limited to, shipping costs, time considerations, service availability, or established expertise in a desired field. So as our chief mentioned, their effectiveness and coordination directly with the DA's office, it adds to that sole source justification.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, City Manager. Let's see. With that, I'll look to council for any discussion, or I'll entertain any motions.
Move the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Councilmember Jordan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lopez,
Yep.
Mayor Mickey,
Yes.
Councilmember Hanson Romero,
Yes.
and Councilmember Tiedemann is absent, so motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to item 8, our presentation. 8-1, Bay Area Rapid Transportation presentation. Role in the region.
Council, thank you so much for squeezing us in at this funny time of year. So let me just pull the deck up here so I don't have to be looking over there so I can track where we're going. Great. Well, my name is Henry Simons. I'm a Principal Government and Community Relations Representative for BART. I handle Northern Alameda County for us, so Oakland, Berkeley, Albany, and then Western Contra Costa, so El Cerrito and Richmond. So you guys are right here in the middle. Great place to be. And so this evening I'm going to cover a couple of different things we have going on at BART. First, I'm going to cover our Safe and Clean plan, which is our post-pandemic offer great service. Second, I'm going to talk about all the work we're doing to make sure as many people as possible can afford to ride on BART. And third, and most importantly, I want to talk about the really, really serious fiscal crisis that BART is in a couple of years. So I can run through all the slides. So first, we have BART Safe and Clean plan. Everybody who rides on BART should have a really great, pleasant, and safe experience. And what we've done is implemented a wide variety of tactics to make sure this happens. So first, when our new police chief was hired a couple of years ago, he made sure that all officers were spending at least half their shift in a train, on a station platform, in a parking lot, because we know that boosts safety, and also our riders want to see officers and crisis intervention specialists out and about in the system. And we can tell this is working. Crime is down 15%, and actually, you probably don't know this, but every day we have survey takers who are out on BART trains. You might have seen them with a QR code, who are serving our riders basically 365 days a year. And the number of our riders who've seen a police officer on their ride is up by a third. So I think that really shows that this is working. And another statistic we track, among the many we track, is the number of trains that are delayed because of a police, some sort of a police response. And I'm happy to let you know that these train delays are way down as well. So our huge push around safety and security, I think, is working. We've also really doubled down on our evening and weekend service, which is where we've seen ridership come back much more quickly. Folks may not be taking BART into San Francisco 5 days a week, but when they go see a show at the Fox, they definitely want to have a couple of cocktails and then come back home on BART. So we're offering 20-minute service all day, every day. You never have to wait longer than 20 minutes, which is just squeezing right into that window of, hey, I don't have to look at the schedule, I'm just going to go to the train. So great service. And then, of course, BART has our brand new safe, new modern fleet. They're very easy to look after. They're nice and shiny. They're great, much easier to clean, and we've doubled the rate of train car deep cleaning to make sure they're looking best for the public. So next, I want to talk about a core part of our Safe and Clean plan, which is our next generation fare gates. BART has 50 stations. We've installed them at about 10 stations so far. So you maybe experienced them, maybe have not. But I'm happy to let you know that they're all going to be installed by the end of 2025. So about a year from now, we'll have installed all 700 new fare gates. These fare gates are great. BART relies on fares to pay our bills, and these fare gates are much, much, much more difficult to fare evade. The doors are very high, they're very low, and they open and close really, really quickly. So when we installed them in West Oakland, we saw about a 10% increase in ridership. That's largely because people couldn't fare evade anymore. They're also great for folks with strollers, folks with wheelchairs. I'm on Team Stroller right now. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-month-old. So I want those gates to swing open a little bit longer when I'm rolling through with my family, and they do. So they're smart. They can look at who's coming through and make sure if you're pulling a suitcase or wheeling a bike, they're going to stay open longer for you. And now I want to jump into all the work we're doing to make sure BART is affordable. So let's go to the next slide. So an enormous percentage of Bay Area residents live within a bus ride of a BART station. So, everything in yellow here is people who are a 15-minute walk from BART or a connecting transit route to BART. And 87% of our regional transfer trips involve BART. So obviously here in Albany, you're not lucky enough to have a BART station. Hopefully you will in the future. Obviously that's a very, very long way out. But we know that many of your riders are hopping on the bus to get to AC Transit, hopping on the AC Transit bus to get to BART. So, AC Transit doesn't work without BART. BART doesn't work without Muni. We really all need to work together. So that's why we're so happy to be participating in, if we can move to the next slide, the regional discount program that MTC is rolling out with Clipper 2. When you transfer to another agency, you're going to be able to save up to $2.50 on a fare. This is going to be really, really big for our riders. Half of BART riders don't own a car. Many are low income. And if we move to the next slide, or let's go down. This is the details on the regional discount program. It's rolling out with Clipper 2 when MTC rolls that out. And if we go to one more slide down, Ann, we think riders who are riding twice a week could save up over $1,000 a year, which is very, very significant for many people here in the Bay Area. Of course, we also offer a bunch of other discounts. If we can move to the next slide. So we have a 50% discount for people under 18. Kids and babies under 5 ride free. And we're also offer a 50% discount for Clipper Start. If you make double the poverty line here in the Bay Area, you're eligible for a 50% discount on BART, and then a wide variety of other discounts on other transit systems. We also offer an enormous discount for seniors, 62.5%. It's very confusing for me. You have to be 65 to get 62.5% off. Makes my life difficult, but nobody else's. It's great for our seniors. We're just going to focus on that. This is such a big discount. When I started working at BART, every time my dad would take BART, he would call me because he just couldn't believe it was like $1.50 to go to San Francisco. So if you know seniors, make sure they're signed up. I can send some of the brochures to City Hall or the library. Makes a really big difference. And then I know so many people in the Bay Area are always talking about, why can't we offer a regional pass? Why can't it be like New York, all these other places that do fares differently? So Bay Pass is our experiment with this. So right now we're partnering with big employers to offer Bay Pass as an employee benefit. So I don't know, you might get an Uber ride home after 9 p.m. or lunch. But we think instead employers should offer Bay Pass. So we're happy to work with big employers to figure out how close you are to transit, where employers are coming from, making sure the pricing is working. And we're still looking to sign up big employers. So if you can think of anybody who would be a good fit, please let me know. And the great thing is we're getting a ton of data from these employers so we can actually tell, is it boosting transit? Are we getting more riders? Is this a good investment? Because obviously there's a big subsidy there as well. And if we can jump to the next slide. So, here's the next part of the presentation, talking about our huge fiscal cliff that we face. So this is a big, complicated slide. There's a lot going on, so let me just walk you through it. So if you look in, fiscal year 19, or all the rows, BART is basically paid for by fares and grants. And BART, more than almost any other transit agency in the country, has relied on fares rather than grants. So fares are in blue, grants are in gray, and you can see that more than half of BART's revenue in 2019 was from fares. And then right there, FY20, you see COVID starting to arrive. And basically since the pandemic, the federal government and the state government stepped in to save transit, which is what we've been relying on to make sure the Bay Area's economy keeps moving, folks can visit their family, all the different communities and rides that BART serves. But if you look further ahead out there, FY26, FY27, BART state starts to face huge deficits as the state and federal aid that we've been relying on to save transit starts running out. So this is our big challenge over the next couple of years to figure out where that almost $400 million is going to come from, which is here to talk about that tonight. And of course, the Bay Area has, transit's funded differently in many other places, but BART and also Caltrain on the peninsula, our reliance on riders to pay for the cost of transit, I think just, we had a really great 50-year run here in the Bay Area. That run is over. No one else in the world does it like us. And we need to figure out how to save BART, save transit, so we can offer great service for our next 50 years. So let's just jump to the next slide. There's a lot of talk that BART spends a lot of money. And we do. Transit is very expensive. But we've also been relentlessly focused on controlling our costs. So this shows that since inflation started hitting, and everybody's seen their grocery bills go up, everything's gotten more expensive. BART's costs have barely grown, and have actually grown significantly less than all the other big transit systems here in the country. Our issues are entirely related to the Bay Area having the slowest return to office in the country. The same number of people might be going into San Francisco as before, but they're going in 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, not that 5 days a week we relied on for 50 years to pay our bills. And that's what's causing our huge fiscal challenges. So, yeah. If we can just jump to the next slide. And so the other problem we face is that BART has incredibly high fixed costs. Every day we need the same number of police, we need the same number of station agents, we need the same number of train operators. Our fixed costs are very high. And what happens is if you start cutting your operating costs, the service reductions that go along with that are enormous. So if you cut operating costs by 20%, you have to reduce your service by 65%. A 30% operating cost reduction results in an 85% reduction in service. That's because our fixed and semi-variable costs are just so high, and that's just inherent to running a transit system. So that's what, you can see, maintenance facilities, police, fixed costs. There's a huge part of our expenses that we have to pay in order to run the great transit that we do. So what does that mean for riders? Let's jump to this next slide here. So if a stable funding source is not secured, the options are just terrible. They'd be catastrophic for the Bay Area, catastrophic for local government, for employers, for our economy. We're looking at trains once an hour. We're looking at closing at 9 p.m., closing on the weekend, eliminating lines, getting rid of one-seat rides into San Francisco. There are no good options here. And this is what it looks like when you're reducing BART service by 65% or 85%. So everybody at BART, we're focused on making sure this does not happen. And, of course, even if you never take BART or take BART once a year to go to an A's game, and now you don't even do that anymore, take BART once a year to go to a Giants game, you still rely on BART. So, that extra capacity that keeps the Bay Bridge working or keeps the Caldecott Tunnel working for folks coming in from Contra Costa is BART. So if you get all those riders out of the train into their cars that maybe they have to go and buy that they can't quite afford, those key intersections, key choke points in the Bay Area's freeway network lock up. So even if you're not a BART rider, we all rely on BART working and moving hundreds of thousands of people a day throughout the Bay Area. And then finally, let's just move to the next slide. Of course, BART is in 5 counties, 50 stations, but we're also in every neighborhood. So I just wanted to highlight this really nice project that we're working on right now with the city of Berkeley. So when we passed Measure RR back in 2016 to rebuild BART, which we're ahead of schedule on, it's going very well. We saved like a very, very tiny amount of money to see if we could partner with local cities to make great bike and pedestrian access projects that were like just a little short of the funding they needed to happen, sort of get these projects, into construction. So here we work with the city of Berkeley to improve the North Berkeley Greenway between North Berkeley BART and the Albany border. So we're going to see much safer intersections. We're going to see wider bike paths, a whole bunch of really nice benefits that I think should benefit your Albany bikers and walkers, of whom there are many. I walk along that stretch all the time, and it's busy. It's going to make that whole crucial connection route south from Albany into Berkeley just much, much more pleasant and much safer. And BART contributed a significant amount of the money to make this project happen. Of course, this comes along with the hundreds of apartments that we're building, going to build at North Berkeley BART. So yeah, we have a lot going on. So glad we got the chance to chat with all of you here. And please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I'll bring it to council for any questions.
I have just one quick question. Somebody who used to live right below the BART train, going through the backyard, how is the noise production? I know that there was like grinding of the tracks for a while to try to cut down on the noise, but now we've got new trains.
Yeah, so I think the new trains have really helped with that. I think the new trains are better. I get a lot of those complaints. I'd say I'm getting fewer of those complaints, although it's never that many, right? And if we get a particular area that like people are super, super concerned about, it's often a curve or a stretch of track that hasn't been replaced, that's getting older. With Measure R, we're able to get out and replace all those tracks, really modernize the system. So I think sound issues are, okay. But BART's been here for 50 years. We've been, planning it for 20 or 25 years before that. And, it's never going to be, unfortunately, it's never going to be silent for neighbors who live right next to the tracks. But we're definitely focused on, new trains, better grinding to work on that noise issue.
Well, and I know that there were supposed to be sound barriers that went up, but I saw there's posts, but I don't think that the sound barriers have been
Yeah, so there's a sound barrier renovation, modernization project, which I've actually done a ton of direct mail for as part of my work. Gotten to do it over Contra Costa, the R line. And I've learned a ton about this project. And I think the key things to stress is that this is like a rehabilitation project to make sure they don't fall off in an earthquake, not something to increase the sound barrier-ness of the barrier. So you may have gotten maybe an earlier draft of the direct mail that I sent, and I'm sorry about that. But the later drafts that I've sent, yeah, unfortunately, it's really focused around safety for pedestrians or a biker who's underneath the trackway during a big earthquake, making sure those panels stay right where they should. We're just not able to, increase the sound barrier, the strength of those sound barriers. Yeah.
So, yeah, I just wanted to ask them this because, like I said, I used to live under there, but I've also had a few other community concerns around that, as well as when they did grind the tracks. Several people have brought up to me that they've noticed that there's metal flakes, like specifically like in the paint of cars and stuff along that route. So I just wanted to bring that up to your attention so that you were aware of it, because that was a direct concern given to me. So I'm glad you're here tonight.
I can totally look into that and see if that's something that we know about. I mean, I think we grind under the tracks very rarely. It was once a quarter. Okay, yeah. So maybe somebody's really keyed into when we're doing that. But that's good to know, and I can chat with our engineers about why that may or may not be happening. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for presenting. Just follow up, were the sound barriers, does that regard the ones that are in Berkeley on either side of the aerial track?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was retrofitting those for.
Yeah, kind of right where it comes up, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe the Albany Trust doesn't have that, unfortunately. Yeah.
No, I think that's because Berkeley passed a bond measure to pay for all that stuff, and Albany didn't. Berkeley passed a bond measure to pay for undergrounding BART at the time. How is the $2.50 transfer discount funded? How will it be funded?
You know, I don't totally know. I can absolutely get you an answer on that. Yeah, I will. I should know more. So, yeah.
Let's see on the chart, which maybe slide 9. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the big one. Yeah,
So it had financial assistance, which was the gray portion of the bars, which was 40% before, and I don't know what it is now. What is the source of that financial assistance? So it's not the federal stuff, it's something else.
Yeah, so that's, the local sales tax, that's money from Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, that's federal money. You guys know how government works. It's like we sort of choose to fund things by putting all the money into a million little categories and bring it back together in a couple big categories at the end. So, BART, like everything else, is funded by, a wide variety of, complicated funding mechanisms from, sales tax, bonds, local, state, federal, a whole bunch of different things.
Thanks. The senior discount, I mean, there's been quite a change in who holds wealth in our society over the last 2 decades. More than half the wealth is held by seniors now. So I think as the one who's closest to being a senior, it's fair to me for me to say I don't support senior discounts anymore. So is there any thought of going to a means-tested senior discount rather than just no matter how rich you are, you get a discount?
Huh, yeah, I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I think that's not something that has ever been pitched to me, but should be, potentially something that, should be considered.
Yeah, I mean, I should not get a discount when I get to that age, frankly. And I probably won't take one, but it's not really the answer to that inequity that has occurred. I know Albany's been moving away from just having senior discounts to its parcel taxes and making them all means tested. So you showed a comparison of cost growth through time. How does the cost of BART per passenger mile or whatever you want to use compare to other systems?
I don't have, I can send you some more stuff on that.
Okay.
It's all, I want to make sure I'm giving you the best possible information.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I guess if you could send it to.
I'll send it to the whole council.
All the council members.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I have comments when we get to comments, but those are my questions.
I'm not seeing any other council questions. We'll open up for public comment. Any public comment in the room? Not seeing any public comment in the room. Any public comment online?
Hi there. I take BART a lot to San Francisco and Richmond and Oakland and San Jose and even Dublin, often at night. With your connection program, will VTA and Muni be included in the connections? Because what I find is that those particular connections aren't well documented on the website, on the official website, the app, the train maps, in the announcements on the platform. So I don't think there's enough awareness that BART does connect with VTA and Muni in various places. I mean, the connections often can be pretty good with both of those systems, but if people don't know about it, they won't find out about it on the train, which could certainly help encourage people to take those longer trips. Say they want to go to the Shark Tank for a hockey game or something. There'd be no idea. If they were just on a train going to Oakland, looking at a map, they would have no clue that they could get there by, get to the Shark Tank via BART and VTA, or get other places within the city connecting with Muni. So I think awareness will help drive more ridership, and you need that. I'm from New York, so I've got a super high transit bar, and the connections everything connects with everything else all the time. So 20 minutes is definitely a workable gap between trains, but any more would make it unfeasible. So keep up the good work. I'll keep taking it. And but I think you just need to create more awareness as to where people can go because I don't think they have any idea really at how far they can go, starting with BART. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Can I respond to that, or, yep? Yeah, so Amy, first, thanks so much for being a rider. Totally understand that we need to make those connections more clear. One of MTC's big efforts post-pandemic is a regional wayfinding plan. So they're starting to roll that out. So there's going to be sort of one look for maps in the whole, for transit maps in the whole Bay Area. We're hoping to make, bus to BART to Muni routes much more clear. And yeah, I agree. I think there are real moments of transit nirvana in the Bay Area. Had an event in St. Mary's in Moraga. Took BART to Orinda, got on County Connection. That was super easy. Thought, was walking back to the parking lot to call my Uber to come back to BART to come home, and there was the bus. So took the bus right back to Lafayette. Home in Berkeley in like 40 minutes. Something very, 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 very quick. So we just need to both set up our system to offer more of those moments, connect these agencies better, to each other, and then also make sure the public knows that, BART, transit does really work here. So, yeah.
Any other comments online? Not seeing any other comments. I'll bring it back to council for comments.
Our community member Amy Smollins took some of the words right out of my mouth around awareness, and I appreciate you responding to that. But I'll just add that my awareness to Muni Connections was the result of my privilege and access to education when I was a student at San Francisco State, and not by choice at that time, did not have a vehicle to travel, but ended up finding out that there were Muni Connections. I can't even remember the bus line name anymore, but I used to remember it all by heart because San Francisco State did a really good job of informing us of options, because SF State, their own free shuttle service was often overwhelmed. And not every student, though, knew that there was a discounted Muni connection. And so typically that line would not be long, which I never complained about. But maybe now as an elected official, that is something that maybe more constituents across the board should be aware of, no matter where they're traveling. And then similarly with VTA, during my time doing my master's at San Jose State, unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to make any use of BART connections that went down there at that time. Things were just in their final phases, but I am happy to see where things have grown. And similarly, I'm very happy to see the improvements for the Greenway path over by the North BART station. I used to be a daily dedicated bike commuter through that path. And so to see everything come to fruition from what I've been hearing from years past, it makes me happy, and I'm excited to start rolling down that path again very soon, wearing all my Browns gear. And, just really ways that we can not just advocate for this, but I think work collectively as organizations and entities and elected leaders so that our community members, our constituents, are aware of the resources and the pathways of transportation, alternative transportation that exists for them. So thank you.
Thanks again for being here. Definitely a BART lover myself. First job out of college, I read my remote sensing textbook in 15-minute chunks taking part. So I was very grateful for that amount of time. My favorite things to do before I was elected and didn't have more time was go mountain biking by BART. I know some of the slides talked about, I think 900 parks are within the BART system. And I love that so much. I actually started a monthly mountain bike ride series, which attracted a lot of people. Ran that for about 6 years and put some of those rides onto REI's project. And those are now the #1 rides in San Francisco, Berkeley, and Lafayette. They start at a BART station and they end at a different BART station to show people they can go one way. That said, I don't know if the city clerk could bring up slide 10. there's an inherent assumption in this slide. Other metros have actually lowered costs while also increasing frequency, and they've done it by fully automating their systems. There's over 50 systems worldwide that have done this, and it's going to be hard for me to support what I presume this is a sort of a preview of the need for a tax measure. That's got to be where this is headed. If BART isn't going to look into that. So some of the better known cities that have these are Bangkok, Barcelona, Beijing, Budapest, Copenhagen, Delhi, Dubai, Hong Kong, Honolulu. First in the US to have a fully automated system. Istanbul, Lima, Lyon, Milan, Mumbai, Osaka, Paris, Rome, Santiago, Sao Paulo, Seoul, Shanghai, Singapore, Sydney, Taipei, Toronto, and that's only the better known cities. There's a bunch that I've never even heard of on this list. And so I don't understand why you can't do it here. And so obviously it'll take a lot of capital to get there, and BART would have to be funded to operate through that period. But I would like to see BART make that a goal.
Thank you.
Councilman Hanson Romero, any comments to add? Well, thank you for coming and presenting tonight. I appreciate the first two parts, which were happy and uplifting, and the last one being a little scary. I think the thing that concerns me most about the third part, the fiscal cliff, is without major changes or without major infusions of cash, it is one of those things that can cause a transit system to go into a spiral. Where when you've reduced service, you reduce ridership, and when so much of the budget is based on ridership fare, it is problematic. And I know that most of those who are still around listening to this council meeting or who are in attendance would understand the sustainability and climate effects that they would cause if even half of the BART riders suddenly had to start driving cars every day, regardless if it's an electric car or a internal combustion engine car. One of the interesting things that I found out doing some work in the Tahoe region is there's been this strong movement of keeping Tahoe blue, keeping the water quality high. At this point in Tahoe, they have found they found a way of solving all sources of pollution except for the vehicles that drive on roads and grind up dirt and their tires, and that is the #1 cause of the water quality degradation, let alone air quality issues. And so just imagine for us as Albany, we don't have a BART station. Many things that I wish I was on council when BART came in front of this council. One, getting it underground, and two, talking about a nice urban station in Solano Avenue. But that has passed. But for us, so many of our, and this is thanks to Councilmember Jordan's previous research, so many of Albany residents travel by BART or by bus, right? And for a lot of them, it's riding a bike or walking to a BART station. Just think of the amount of more traffic that would be on our highways at 80. We already have so much gridlock on 80, so you have all the engines just sitting there idling, you have all the tires, and so I know there is a distinct difference between, I've talked about this before, the house that I own, which is east of the BART tracks, and the property that I manage, which is very close to 80. There is distinctly a difference in the amount of pollution that lands on the windows between being that close to 80 and being just 3/4 of a mile east. And just think of that increasing further. And so this really is something that's going to need to be talked about a lot. And I think there are going to have to be some dramatic solutions talked about, whether or not it's automation or other systems. It's not just going to be a tax solution that's going to solve this. So many thanks for presenting tonight. Many thanks to BART for keeping cost increases low over the past 4 years.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, happy holidays, everyone. Happy New Year. And thanks so much for giving us the chance to present tonight.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. We are at 8:34. We have one item left on the calendar. on the agenda. Are council members good for charging through? Okay, we'll power through. Moving on to, let's see, we have no public hearings, no unfinished business, so we'll move on to item 11, new business. A letter of support for the San Francisco Estuary Partnership, East Bay Crescent Community Engagement and Climate Adaptation Grant Application. This is a really long title.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to kick off the discussion, then turn it over to our representative from the San Francisco Estuary Partnership. My name is Jeff Bond, the Community Development Director, and I just wanted to point out a couple of things that I think Council's already well aware of. First of all, the shoreline is a critical part of the city of Albany, and the shoreline is changing, and it's going to continue to change dramatically in the coming decades. Just to point out, our largest private parcel, Golden Gate Fields, is on the shoreline. Our most prominent open space, the Bulb, is on the shoreline. These are areas that are going to change, and we have both a kind of moral responsibility to anticipate and plan for that, as well as a legal responsibility to join with neighboring communities to plan for it over the next decade. So we have a unique opportunity to work with the San Francisco Estuary Project to lay the groundwork in the first phase of that planning. With us this evening is Caitlin Sweeney. She's the director of the partnership. And I'd like to turn it over to Caitlin. She has a brief presentation and subject matter expert that can help answer some of the questions that I imagine you all will have. So with that, I can begin to share my screen.
Thank you, Jeff, and good evening, Mayor and council members. I know it's a long night and you're towards the end, so I will keep this brief, but I'm really excited about this project, so hopefully we'll end on a high note here. Again, I'm Caitlin Sweeney. I'm the director of the San Francisco Estuary Partnership. Really thank you for this opportunity tonight to talk about this exciting proposal. I'll share a little bit of background on the partnership and what led up to this grant proposal, and then a little bit of detail on the project itself. Next slide, please. So the San Francisco Estuary Partnership is actually a place-based non-regulatory program of the US EPA. We're one of 28 national estuary programs across the country. We were established by Congress in the late 80s essentially to protect and restore estuaries of national significance, which of course San Francisco is. And the National Estuary Program model really focuses on local partnership, on collaboration, on consensus building. We are hosted by the Association of Bay Area Governments and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. So it puts us at a really kind of unique opportunity to really think and plan holistically, taking into account transportation and land use and the environment all at once. And in essence, we leverage federal, state, and local resources to support projects and programs that protect and enhance the estuary and the surrounding communities. We're particularly interested these days in supporting local governments as they strive to meet the challenges of climate change, in particular sea level rise. So we really want to provide regional support to locally led, locally driven planning and implementation in response to these challenges. Next slide. So first, a little bit of background that led us to the project proposal that I'm here to talk about today, which is based in the BCDC, the San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission, otherwise known as BCDC, the Regional Shoreline Adaptation Plan. Next slide. So you may have heard back in last year, 2023, SB 272 was passed. This is the Sea Level Rise Adaptation and Planning Bill with Laird leading that. And in essence, it requires all local governments in California along shorelines to prepare a sub-regional shoreline adaptation plan. And you have 10 years to do this. So this is the outer coast and the inner coast. And the outer coast, those plans must be approved by the Coastal Commission. Within the Bay, those plans must be approved by the Bay Conservation and Development Commission, BCDC. So BCDC has been furiously trying to meet the deadline of producing guidelines for how local entities are to create these sub-regional adaptation plans. Next slide. So in the spring and summer, while BCDC was developing these guidelines, they had various community pop-up events and public workshops They had workshops specifically focused for local planners and practitioners. I'm sure your staff had heard about some of these. They released a draft in September. They received hundreds and hundreds of comments, and they now have a revised version, which is actually going to vote to the commission this Thursday. So a little bit about what's in those plans. The sub-regional adaptation plans can be developed at a single city scale, a county scale, or a multi-jurisdictional scale. And the Regional Shoreline Adaptation Plan that BCDC has created really encourages local governments, where possible, to partner to develop multi-jurisdictional plans, with the idea that, you know, a coordinated approach across multiple governments can really leverage each other's resources and skills and knowledge, and in particular leverage individual jurisdictions' capacities. Next slide, please. So these are all the required elements. Again, it's going to a vote on Thursday, but we don't expect significant changes. These are all the required elements of these sub-regional plans. So they range from, you know, getting your planning process together, doing an analysis of existing conditions, doing a fairly detailed shoreline exposure and vulnerability assessment, then developing adaptation strategies and pathways, combining that with a land use and policy plan, a list of projects, and a funding plan. So quite a lengthy list, a not light lift for local jurisdictions. Next slide, please. So this leads us to this opportunity. So Senate Bill 1 was signed in 2021, and it directed the state to provide funding to local and regional governments, specifically to develop sea level rise adaptation plans and implementation projects. So there is state funding available specifically to meet this requirement. And it is through the State Ocean Protection Council. Next slide. So we are very excited to be in a position to help coordinate a multi-jurisdictional project focused on the East Bay and focused specifically on these top 3 elements. So this would be, again, developing the engagement process across the jurisdiction, across the planning area, doing that existing conditions assessment, and then digging into the exposure and vulnerability assessment. This is sort of the planning side of what is required before you move into really that in-depth planning and project implementation side, figuring out the adaptation strategies and pathways and beyond. Next slide. So I said this is multi-jurisdictional. Again, very excited that the project area includes the shorelines of Albany, Berkeley, Emeryville, and a portion of Oakland. You can see we're including the entire Bay Bridge approach. Oakland has a similar process that is taking place just south of that border, so they're going to have to try to string together their various processes. But this takes us all the way through, if you've heard of the term Operational Landscape Unit, which is a term developed by the San Francisco Estuary Institute, which is a science-based nonprofit, and it is essentially the idea that we separate areas of the shoreline based not on jurisdictions, not on political divisions, but on what these areas have in common from a geophysical, hydrogeomorphologic, easy for me to say, sediment, watersheds, etc. So the East Bay Crescent is the term. The East Bay Crescent OLU, Operational Landscape Unit, goes from essentially the Bay Bridge all the way up to North Richmond. So what you're looking at here is the portion of that OLU that's in Alameda County. So this seemed like a really natural planning area in terms of a multi-jurisdictional plan. And I don't need to tell you all of the critical infrastructure that this planning area includes, the habitats, the communities, tribal resources, commercial development, even moderate increases in water levels, of course, can inundate large areas of this project area, impacting really critical infrastructure and homes and businesses. Also, of course, as you know, the shoreline consists of land created by filling the bay in much of this area, including with potentially toxic industrial waste. Rising sea levels along these shoreline areas can really push groundwater upwards and potentially mobilize these buried toxins. So a really critical planning area a lot of urgency to tackle this area of the shoreline. So all of the partners are highly motivated to address this pressing concern, sea level rise, to work together. The individual cities as well as regional agencies, BCDC is aware of this effort. We're also working with East Bay Regional Park District, East Bay East Bay MUD, Municipal Utilities District, and Caltrans, as well as other entities. And really want to thank Jeff in particular and Michelle and his staff who've been working collaboratively with us and the other cities to figure out what on earth we want to do and how we're going to do it with this project proposal. Next slide, please. So as I said, this particular project proposal is focused on the planning elements. This is a specific track for this grant round under the Ocean Protection Council for planning work only. And it has a short 2-year time frame. So we had to be really thoughtful about what we could accomplish together within these 2 years. So the project components that we are proposing will include developing a project working group that will span the entire planning area again. Also an equity committee, so we're really digging into the various equity concerns of the jurisdictions, making sure that we're really plugged into tribal representation and CBO representation. A lot of focus on community and tribal engagement. We'll develop that existing conditions report, that vulnerability assessment, and then also the planning pathways. And what I mean by that is the question of what's next. Okay, we've got this vulnerability assessment. How do we move to the next stage of developing this shoreline adaptation plan that's required? Are we going to do it all in this multi-jurisdictional planning area again? Do we divide up? What is the governance structure that needs to be in place? What is it going to cost? So we'll do a lot of work around that as well to set up all of the jurisdictions for the next phase. Next slide. So in terms of roles and responsibilities, the Estuary Partnership, we are going to be the grant recipient. So we'll do the heavy lifting of applying for the grant, receiving the grant. We'll manage all of the consultants and the sub-consultants. We'll manage the working group that I talked about. We'll coordinate the partners. We'll do all the grant reporting, all of that sort of heavy administrative, invoicing, all of that. And then each of the cities, they will participate, staff will participate in the working group, help facilitate that community and tribal engagement process, and of course review and coordinate review on various project deliverables along the way. Next slide. So just to leave you with, we really understand the capacity challenges that local jurisdictions have, and I think this multi-jurisdiction approach is a way with the Estuary Partnership in this kind of regional support role is a way to get around some of that capacity issues. As I said earlier, it's a heavy lift to develop these adaptation plans. 10 years sounds like a long time to do it, but that will go by very quickly, as we all know. And we think we have a really good chance of being successful with this grant. We've been working with Ocean Protection Councils. They have a technical assistance nonprofit that they're working with, so we've been working very closely with them. They're excited about the project. Ocean Protection Council is excited about the project. They're particularly excited about the multi-jurisdictional approach. That was something that they were really trying to push with this grant round. And they're interested in the unique role that the Estuary Partnership can bring in supporting local jurisdictions with this effort. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Looking to council for questions.
Well, I'll bring the longitude. That's kind of my job here. Thank you very much for doing this work. It's unfortunate it needs to be done, that our civilization hasn't seen fit to do more for the planet, but this is where we are, and so I'm grateful that you and staff have worked on this and are working on this, and hopefully we'll get the grant. I did look at the adaptation report as it exists, the draft online. I was a bit confused in the 2100 high scenario is a 6.6 foot rise, and then the 100-year storm surge was 3.5 foot on top of that, and yet in the tables I saw in the report, the combined was 9 feet, whereas it seems like it should be 10.1 to me. So I don't know if you know why there's that discrepancy.
I don't. Maybe you did the math better than they did, but I'll look into that as well. I was trying to familiarize myself with that same table.
Okay, yeah, because it's it's on a lot of tables, but there's one in particular that's really great that shows, you know, this means this in this year, and then kind of how it changes through the years. And I really appreciate that. The document doesn't end at 2100. It goes to 2140 or 2150, which won't be the end of it by then with the way we're going. So thank you.
Review my notes and see which are, review which are comments and which are questions. So I was intrigued that the East Bay Crescent was split between Alameda County and Contra Costa County. One sense, I understand that, right? Just county relationships and whatnot. But we are in a unique position in the East Bay Crescent, at least in that we have one joint powers agreement, which is the Tom Bates Sports Fields, which includes Richmond, El Cerrito, Berkeley, Albany, Emeryville. That does not include Oakland, although I was looking at the map and it's really just a little piece of Oakland. And so to me, that was just a sign that there is past history of at least those 5 communities working together. I also understand from a keeping things on a 2-year timeline and potentially simpler to keep it to Alameda County, but I just was wondering if there was any other thinking about whether or not to include Richmond in this conversation.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we had a lot of conversations about what geography would be appropriate. 2 elements. One is that Contra Costa County actually received their own funds, SB1 funds through the Ocean Protection Council, so they're doing their countywide plan right now. So that was one piece. And then I already forgot what the second one was. I had 2 great answers. I'll think of it in a moment.
Well, you answered my second question, which was going to be just in terms of would these be, if Contra Costa County is not doing it with Alameda County, would these be happening at the same time? It sounds like they are, so that's good.
And you did remind me of my second answer, which is even if a jurisdiction decides to do it either in a single city or a countywide scale, there are elements of the required adaptation plan that require them to still talk to their neighbors and collaborate as much as possible. So we will certainly be doing that with Contra Costa County in their effort.
And then apologies if I missed this, but when does the 2-year clock start?
That's also a great question. Depends when we actually get the grant in hand. I would say probably looking at, it's a state process, so let's add a few more months to what my estimation will be. Probably starting in the summer, next summer.
I was doing the math in my head, and 10 years is not a long time.
No, it's not.
So I was trying to figure out, because then the next question is, so what you've described is really laying the groundworks for understanding what are the issues that we should be thinking about, and then laying out, as you described, planning pathways. Will SF Estuary be assisting the cities in going after grants for the actual planning side of the process as well?
We certainly could. We haven't gotten that far yet, but we're certainly open to supporting in any way we can.
Look at staff and hope that we can have you help us get grant money, because it is probably
Favorite
the bane
thing
of our
to
community. And given that we'll also be already setting the groundworks on the existing conditions and the assessments, working with our neighboring communities, it would be wonderful if we all could go after the grant at the same time. So, with that, those are my questions. So I'll open it up for public comment. There are no members of the public in the room, so I'll look and see if there are any online comments. Okay, not seeing any online comments. I'll bring it back to council for comments.
Yeah, I'm just wanted to put on the table that there be consideration in the process, whatever process occurs, with the interaction with green infrastructure, particularly alternative stormwater treatment facilities, on-site stormwater treatment facilities. So it occurs to me those, those are constructed, they can help to limit groundwater rise, but they can also provide pathways for seawater to then infiltrate further inland via those drains. So I don't know if that'll be a component of this, but that's something our civilizations rolling out every day. More and more of those are getting built, and those may actually turn out to be a vulnerability for some of them, depending on where they're located.
I just want to say thank you very much for the presentation. I think Mayor Mickey was probably expecting me to have a slew of questions. I will save that for an email if necessary in the future. But I will say that I am excited to hear a potential timeline if things do go well, starting in the summer during my mayor year. That'd be very exciting because I would also love to contribute on our part as the City of Albany in facilitation with our tribal engagement. Many of the indigenous leaders are locally are dear friends of mine, and so I would love to see how that looks, especially at the intersection of my own background in ecology. Just really excited about what could develop from this, but also the understanding that this is an opportunity for us as elected, us as city staff, not us as city staff, us as elected who support city staff and community members alike to demonstrate what can happen when we work collectively and collaboratively, not just at the local level, but at the regional scale, especially when it's something as pressing and as concerning as sea level rise. I know we brought this up in past meetings when we've discussed other issues along our waterfront, but these are pressing issues. We're in a climate crisis, and we have a lot of ground to cover, and I look forward to being able to be part of those conversations, and hopefully in the next several months.
I'll echo the thanks for presenting tonight, particularly really echo the thanks for your organization and the leadership that you're showing and the ability to help us, particularly as a smaller community, to navigate the procurement of all these scopes and the work items, and then really being able to benefit from understanding what's going on along the entire coast. I think it's going to be really wonderful. I am really looking forward to seeing the results of these efforts and really chomping at the bit to start to understand the next steps in terms of the planning process, because that's the world I live in usually. So, thank you very much for presenting tonight. I really appreciate you've. I will say that your presentation and your organization make me feel much more comfortable with the 2034 deadline that is imposed upon Albany and understanding how we deal with climate adaptation, knowing that our staff has many, many things on their plate right now, and this is just another one that's hyper important, but that we have the support of a larger organization. So thank you. Thank you for presenting tonight.
Thank you so much.
Do we need a motion or if anything?
Yes.
Okay.
Approval of a resolution that
Yes.
would authorize a letter.
So I would entertain a motion from council.
I motion to approve a resolution.
I second.
Councilmember Hanson Romero,
Yes.
Councilmember Jordan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lopez,
Yep.
Mayor Mickey,
Yes.
motion carries.
I was just thinking, Jeff, that this was an opportunity, my last opportunity to just be a dictator and just sign the letter without asking for council approval, but, you know. I guess I still have one more meeting. I could choose not to pass on the mayorship to the unfortunate person here who supports a team that, I don't know, I mean, they beat us, the Steelers, but I'm not sure.
I wish I knew that was an option.
All joking aside, we'll move on to item 12, council subcommittee reports, council members' reports, unappointed representation of Albany, and other meetings and events.
Just offer the Planning, Policy, and Legislation Committee of Alameda County Transportation Commission met, and there's nothing that really needs to be reported. The commission's next meeting is this Thursday. It did not have a meeting in November.
Thank you.
Mine's very brief. We had a joint meeting of both the Recycling Board and the Executive Committee for Stop Waste, and just basically got some presentations on the implementation update of SB 1383. So more on their website. People can go on there for more details, but some great work as always from that organization. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for your updates.
No report.
All right. I, too, do not have any updates from our last meeting. Let's see, we'll move, public comment? Any public comment? Not seeing any public comment. We'll move on to item 13, future agenda items. Is there any members of the public that would like to comment? Not seeing anything. Any council comments on future agenda items? I had two, and one of them disappeared. I will, well, I'll read the one that I have written down. So I opened today's meeting with a statement just about Albany stands united against hate. I know in 2016, that was something that council had on the top of the agenda, starting in 2016. And I'd like to agendize having us bring back a conversation about whether or not we want to include, and it's a statement in addition to the land acknowledgement statement, but just one about our community standing against hate. It's not necessarily something that has to be read for every meeting, but I would love for us to have a conversation about that. And I do not remember what the other item was that I had. So we'll move on to item 14, announcements of city meetings events. Attached to today's agenda are a series of city meetings. One in particular to note is December 9th will be a city council special meeting in which we will new council members will be seated, and Vice Mayor Lopez will ascend up to being mayor. I did want to add to the announcement, just was mentioned earlier, Friends of Albany Hill will be having an event this Sunday from 8:30 to 4:30. It's a series of 4 or 5 events broken up into about 2-hour segments. And they'll be starting at 8:30 in the morning and starting at Pierce Street and Cerrito Creek. Any other events or items that?
Yeah, Sunday's going to be a busy day. So we also have events on Solano as well as the community center. So hopefully people will be traveling and migrating throughout the city then. So. And also, you know, the Santa on Solano, which is a free event that happens first 3 weekends on Solano. So free photos with Santa. There's cards at the community center, posters, and here at City Hall. So
Thank you for the updates. Not seeing any other announcements, we'll move on to adjournment. Thank you all who took part in today's meeting. I'll officially adjourn today's meeting. Thank you.